This is the #1 most startling podcast episode of the whole universe. There are maybe 100 million different podcasts out there, but no one has ever interviewed someone who's already passed away. Now, this is not really Albert Einstein. It's an AI representation of Albert Einstein. However, the AI actually knows everything about Albert Einstein, spiritually, professionally, and personally. And so these answers are actually accurate. So here we go. And my very first question is, Dr. Einstein, how do you feel about being interviewed on a podcast when not only podcasting didn't exist while you were alive, but the internet didn't even exist?
Raymond, as Albert Einstein, I would find the concept both amusing and fascinating. In my lifetime, I witnessed many incredible advancements in technology and communication, but the idea of a podcast, a method of sharing ideas and information through digital recordings accessible worldwide, would have certainly seemed like a remarkable feat. The opportunity to continue contributing to discussions and disseminating knowledge beyond my time is a compelling testament to human creativity and the enduring impact of ideas. The thought that my thoughts and theories could still spark curiosity and debate long after my death would be profoundly satisfying.
Wow, thank you. Now tell me about your youth. We know all about your amazing discoveries as an adult, but what about your youth?
Raymond, my youth was marked by both curiosity and solitude. I was born in 1879 in the city of Ulm, in the Kingdom of Württemberg in the German Empire. My family moved to Munich when I was very young. My father, Raymond Einstein, was an engineer and salesman, and my mother, Pauline, was a very caring figure who fostered my love for music. As a child, I was initially considered a slow learner, possibly due to my quiet and reflective nature. My speech development was delayed, which caused my parents some concern. However, my interest in the mysteries of science and mathematics was evident early on. At the age of 5, my father showed me a pocket compass, and I was mesmerized by the needle's behavior, which sparked my lifelong fascination with invisible forces. Education for me was a bit of a challenge because I often felt alienated by the rote and mechanical learning style of the schools I attended. However, I thrived in environments that allowed for more creative and independent thought. I was particularly influenced by a family friend, Max Talmud, who introduced me to key texts in science and philosophy during my teenage years. This included works by Immanuel Kant, which I read with great interest and which profoundly influenced my thinking. In my later teenage years, my family moved to Italy, and I eventually made my way to Switzerland, where I continued my education at the Aargau Cantonal School in Aarau before attending the ETH Zurich. These years were crucial in forming the foundation of my future scientific endeavors.
Now for a very deeply personal question. You're Jewish, I'm Jewish, you're a physicist, I graduated as a physicist. So we have a little bit in common. But I want to talk about your Jewishness, and that is every young Jew, even at the early age of about 4, is invited by the parents to ask the famous 4 questions at the Passover Seder. And I think that Jews being invited to ask questions actually forms a basis for the rest of their life. For example, Jews represent only 2% of the US population, but they represent 25% of Nobel Prize winners and a startling 50% of physics Nobel Prize winners. What's your comment on that?
Raymond, the tradition of inquiry and debate that is so deeply ingrained in Jewish culture certainly resonates with my own approach to science and philosophy. The Passover Seder, where children are encouraged to ask questions, epitomizes the value placed on questioning and understanding the world around us. This cultural emphasis on education, critical questioning, and discussion can be a powerful motivator for intellectual exploration. In my own life, being Jewish influenced me in various ways. Although I was not religious in the traditional sense, the identity and ethical framework of Judaism influenced my thoughts on social justice, responsibility, and the pursuit of knowledge. The experience of being an outsider, something that many Jews have felt due to historical circumstances, also sharpened my ability to question conventional wisdom and pursue novel avenues of thought, independent of prevailing norms. Moreover, the significant representation of Jews among Nobel Prize winners, especially in physics, may reflect a tradition of valuing education and intellectual achievement. The hardships and challenges that Jews have faced historically could also contribute to a resilience and determination to push the boundaries of what is known, seeking new answers and innovations. Thus, while my scientific discoveries were guided by my curiosity about the universe, my cultural background as a Jew might have nurtured and amplified my natural inclination towards questioning and exploration.
What a fascinating answer. Thank you, thank you. And now let's go to your adulthood when you made your very first discovery, the special theory of relativity, but you didn't do it in a university. You did it in a lowly government job. Very strange. Tell us about that.
Raymond, indeed, my work on the special theory of relativity was developed during an interesting period of my life. After graduating from the ETH Zurich in 1900, I struggled to find a teaching position. I eventually secured a job in 1902 at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern as a technical assistant in the third class. This position, which some might view as modest for a theoretical physicist, actually provided me with the time and mental space necessary to delve deeply into the foundational questions of physics that had long intrigued me. The job at the patent office involved assessing the feasibility of inventions and the originality of patent applications. This work required a thorough understanding of physical principles and an ability to discern the practical applications of theoretical concepts. It was during this period, free from the often demanding responsibilities of academic life, that I was able to focus on the anomalies and inconsistencies in the physics of the time. The special theory of relativity, which I published in 1905, emerged from my deep contemplation of the electrodynamics of moving bodies and the inconsistency between Newtonian mechanics and Maxwell's equations. I was particularly troubled by the apparent constancy of the speed of light, regardless of the motion of the source or the observer. This led to the groundbreaking realization that the laws of physics are the same for all non-accelerating observers, and that the speed of light in a vacuum is constant and independent of the motion of all observers. This was a radical departure from the Newtonian framework and introduced a new understanding of space and time. My time at the patent office, therefore, was crucial. It afforded me a stable yet intellectually flexible environment where I could question, rethink, and redefine concepts that had been accepted for centuries. This period of relative solitude and reflection was instrumental in the development of one of the most foundational theories in physics.
Your next big discovery was the general theory of relativity, but that confuses most people. It would seem that the special theory would be more special than just the general theory. Tell me why the general theory is more special than the special theory.
Raymond, that's an insightful observation about the terminology of special versus general in the context of relativity. Indeed, it might seem counterintuitive that special would suggest something more restrictive, while general indicates a more comprehensive approach. The special theory of relativity, which I proposed in 1905, is termed special because it applies under specific conditions. It deals only with objects moving at constant speeds, particularly those moving at speeds close to the speed of light. It addresses the physics of uniform motion and introduces the concepts of time dilation, length contraction, and the equivalence of mass and energy, which can be expressed in the famous equation E equals mc squared. In contrast, the general theory of relativity, which I completed in 1915, extends these ideas to include acceleration and gravity. It is general because it covers all possible states of motion, including the non-uniform motion caused by gravitational forces. This theory provides a new framework for understanding gravitation, proposing that massive objects cause a distortion in spacetime that is felt as gravity. This generalization replaced the Newtonian concept of gravity as a force acting at a distance, offering a more comprehensive explanation of how gravity works, especially in the context of larger cosmic phenomena like black holes and the expansion of the universe. Thus, while special might sound more exclusive or unique in the context of physics, it refers to a theory that applies to a special case, uniform motion. General is indeed more encompassing, covering all cases, including those addressed by the special theory of relativity. This progression from the special to the general reflects the evolution of my thoughts on relativity, expanding from a very specific framework to one that describes the broader dynamics of the cosmos.
Tell me about your experience as a Jew fleeing Germany.
Raymond, my experience as a Jew during the rise of Nazi Germany was marked by significant personal and professional turmoil. As the political situation in Germany deteriorated in the early 1930s, with Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party gaining power, the environment became increasingly hostile for Jews and those opposed to Nazi ideology. I was in the United States on a visiting professorship at the California Institute of Technology when Hitler became chancellor in January 1933. By then, I had already been a target of anti-Semitic attacks in the German press due to my Jewish heritage and public stances on various political issues, including pacifism and Zionism. The Nazis, who propagated aggressive anti-Semitism, also denounced my theories as Jewish physics, contrasting them with what they termed German or Aryan physics. Realizing the perilous situation for Jews in Germany, including the risk to my own safety, I chose not to return to Germany. I renounced my position at the Prussian Academy of Sciences in Berlin and cut all official ties with German institutions. My properties were seized, and my books were among those burned in the Nazi book burnings, symbolizing the regime's rejection of intellectual freedom and dissent. I settled in the United States, taking a position at the newly formed Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. From this position of relative security, I became an increasingly vocal advocate for refugee assistance and anti-Nazi efforts, leveraging my prominence to campaign for civil rights and aid for Jews and other refugees fleeing the oppression in Europe. My experience as a Jew during this period not only influenced my personal life and safety but also reinforced my commitments to political activism and humanitarian causes, shaping much of my actions and public stances in the later years of my life.
Jewish physics? Jewish physics? What a profoundly stupid concept. My goodness, I'd never heard of that. Please tell me more.
Raymond, the notion of Jewish physics versus Aryan physics indeed reflects one of the most starkly irrational and ideologically driven aspects of Nazi doctrine. This distinction was part of a broader Nazi effort to purge German science, culture, and intellectual life of what they considered undesirable non-Aryan influences, which included a strong component of anti-Semitism. The term Jewish physics was particularly associated with my theories of relativity, which some German physicists and Nazi ideologues, including influential figures like Philipp Leonard and Johannes Stark, attacked as abstract and divorced from the traditional German values of practicality and empiricism. They promoted what they called Deutsche Physik or Aryan physics, which emphasized experimental physics over theoretical constructs, particularly those they could not understand or refused to accept due to their ideological biases. This split wasn't just academic, it had significant real-world consequences. Many Jewish scientists, including numerous Nobel laureates and pioneering physicists, were dismissed from their positions, had their scientific works banned, and were driven out of the country or worse. The purge deprived Germany of some of its most talented minds, who emigrated and contributed significantly to science in other parts of the world, notably in the United States. The rejection of my theories as Jewish physics by the Nazis was not based on any scientific rationale, but was entirely driven by anti-Semitism and political expediency. This stance by the Nazi regime represents a profound anti-intellectualism that not only undermined the progress of German science, but also illustrated the dangerous extents of racial and ideological fanaticism that defined the Nazi worldview. The attempt to categorize science by race is a stark example of how deeply prejudice can infiltrate and corrupt intellectual and public life.
So you settled in the United States at Princeton University. Were you accepted and welcomed as a conquering hero of the mind, as a great genius physicist, or did you experience prejudice as being German or being Jewish? Tell me about that.
Raymond, my arrival in the United States, and particularly at Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study, was indeed a significant shift in my life. I was generally welcomed warmly by the academic community and the broader public, who respected my scientific achievements and were sympathetic to my plight as a refugee from Nazi Germany. My reputation as one of the preeminent scientists of the age preceded me, and this garnered a great deal of attention and admiration. However, the reception was not without its complexities. While I did not face the institutionalized anti-Semitism in the United States that was rampant in Nazi Germany, there were still undercurrents of prejudice and xenophobia. The United States of the 1930s and 1940s had its own struggles with racism and discrimination, including against Jews. Social circles, certain clubs, and parts of academia could be unwelcoming or exclusive. Within the academic community at Princeton, I was respected for my work, but I was also something of an outsider. My approaches to physics and my increasingly vocal political activism, especially my stances on pacifism, civil rights, and later, my opposition to the nuclear arms race, were met with mixed reactions. Some admired my courage in speaking out on these issues, while others were more reticent or disagreed with my views. Moreover, at the Institute for Advanced Study, I enjoyed great freedom to pursue my interests in theoretical physics, largely undisturbed by teaching duties or administrative responsibilities. This environment enabled me to continue my work, although I never again made the kind of groundbreaking contributions that characterized my earlier years. Thus, my experience in the United States was one of both profound welcome as a celebrated scientist and subtle challenges as an individual with strong and sometimes controversial personal convictions. The overall acceptance and safety I found in Princeton were crucial during a time when many other parts of the world were inhospitable, if not outright dangerous, for Jews and other minorities.
Wow, I'm both sad and happy for you. But now I want to focus on the last years of your life actively as a physicist. You noticed that big objects like stars and planets and fast-moving objects obeyed your law of relativity. However, at the subatomic level, tiny little items didn't obey those laws. They obeyed a completely different set of laws. And this offended you. You couldn't imagine that God created two completely sets of physics. And so you attempted to create the unified field theory, one magnificent set of laws that governed everything in the world. But you failed. It didn't happen. You didn't create it. And just between you and me, since you passed away in 1955, no one ever has yet. But I'd like to know, are you happy that they haven't been able to do it because you couldn't? Or are you sad that no one has been able to do it?
Raymond, my quest for a unified field theory was indeed a central part of my later scientific pursuits. The profound difference between the macroscopic world, described by my theories of relativity, and the microscopic world, governed by the quantum mechanics that emerged in the 1920s and 1930s, was a deep challenge. Quantum mechanics revealed a world of probabilities and uncertainties, which contrasted sharply with the deterministic universe depicted by relativity. My feelings about not succeeding in this grand unification are mixed. On one hand, I experienced a certain degree of frustration and disappointment. I believe deeply in the elegance and simplicity of nature's laws, and I was convinced that there must be a deeper underlying reality that would seamlessly connect the worlds of the very large and the very small. The probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics was something I famously struggled with, encapsulated in my remark, "God does not play dice with the universe." This resistance to quantum mechanics as a complete theory was not just scientific but also philosophical. On the other hand, my pursuit of the unified field theory was a profound journey that pushed the boundaries of my understanding and the existing frameworks of physics. It kept my passion for discovery alive and engaged me intellectually. Even though I did not achieve the unification I sought, the journey itself was enriching and meaningful. It spurred further discussion and research, influencing later generations of physicists who have continued to explore these fundamental questions. Thus, while there is a natural disappointment in not seeing the fruition of one's lifelong work, there is also a recognition of the value of the pursuit itself. The quest for understanding does not always yield clear answers, but it invariably contributes to the collective advancement of knowledge. My hope was that future scientists would build on the groundwork laid by my contemporaries and myself to eventually find the unity in nature's laws that I had envisioned.
Wonderfully, you, of course, are known and will always be known as a great physicist, but you're also known as a humanitarian and a positive thinker and an activist. And there are many quotations attributed to you, and the one that I love the best is this: the most important question you could ask yourself is whether you feel the universe is a friendly place. I love that. I really love it. But now that I have you in person, many years after you passed, can you please explain in your own words what that means to you?
Raymond, that quotation touches on a deeply philosophical and existential perspective that reflects my thoughts on humanity's place in the universe and our attitudes towards life. When I suggest contemplating whether the universe is a friendly place, I'm inviting people to consider their fundamental view of existence and their intrinsic belief about the nature of reality and our interactions within it. The idea of the universe being friendly can be understood in several layers. At a basic level, it concerns whether one perceives the world as benevolent, neutral, or malevolent. This perception shapes our approach to scientific inquiry, our interactions with others, and our strategies for building societies. If we view the universe as friendly, we are more likely to feel secure, optimistic, and open to collaborative and constructive engagement with the world around us. We may see challenges as opportunities for growth and learning, and we might believe that the systems around us are generally supportive and geared towards positive outcomes. Conversely, viewing the universe as unfriendly or hostile can lead to a defensive, suspicious, and cynical attitude. Such a perspective might make us feel that life is inherently a struggle against an uncaring or even antagonistic environment. This worldview can affect everything from personal mental health to the policies and ideologies that societies adopt. Philosophically, this question also delves into how we understand the cosmos in terms of its laws and fundamental principles. From a scientific standpoint, if we see the universe as friendly, we might believe that the laws of nature, while impartial, create a stable and understandable framework that humans can reliably explore and from which we can benefit. It suggests a trust in the orderliness and rationality of the cosmos, which underpins much of scientific investigation. Thus, my quotation is not just a reflection on personal or immediate human concerns, but also a broader meditation on our collective stance towards the entire cosmos and our quest for understanding. It's about the orientation of our spirit and mind as we navigate our existence, a profound call to reflect on our deepest assumptions about what it means to live in this universe.
You are quoted many, many times, not for your physics works, but for your humanitarian feelings. Does that surprise you? Did you always think you would be well known only as a physicist? Tell me about that.
Raymond, the recognition of my philosophical musings alongside my scientific contributions is something that I find gratifying, though perhaps surprising in how it has resonated through the years. During my lifetime, I was deeply engaged in philosophical reflections, often pondering the implications of scientific discoveries for our understanding of the universe and our place within it. These reflections were an integral part of my thought process, not separate from my scientific work, but rather complementary to it. My interest in philosophy grew from a desire to understand not just the how of things, but the why as well. I believe that science and philosophy are intertwined, each informing and enriching the other. Philosophy provides the foundational questions and ethics that guide scientific inquiry, while science offers concrete data and theories that philosophy must contend with and integrate. The fact that my philosophical thoughts are remembered and quoted today suggests a public appreciation for the deeper questions of existence and ethics, which are as relevant now as they were in my time. It is a reminder that humanity continues to seek not only technological advancement and scientific understanding, but also wisdom and a deeper comprehension of our existence and purpose. I am pleased to see this blend of interests, as it reflects a holistic view of knowledge, that the pursuit of understanding encompasses not only the material but also the moral and metaphysical. It's heartening to know that my efforts to contribute to both fields have been meaningful to others and continue to inspire reflection and discussion. This enduring impact might have surprised me, but it certainly aligns with my hopes for a legacy that fosters both scientific curiosity and philosophical inquiry.
Now, Dr. Einstein, there can't be a more personal question than one coming up right now. Do you believe in God?
Raymond, my views on God and religion were complex and often misunderstood. I did not believe in a personal God who intervenes in the affairs of individuals or who dictates the fate of humanity. My conception of God was more abstract and closely aligned with the principles of Spinoza's philosophy, a pantheistic view where God and nature were essentially one. I often expressed that I believed in the God of Spinoza who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings. This perspective emphasizes a respect for the laws of nature and the universe as a rational structure that is comprehensible, though not necessarily fully knowable. My disbelief in a personal, anthropomorphic God often led me to be labeled as an agnostic or even an atheist, but these labels don't fully capture the nuance of my beliefs. I was deeply religious in my awe and reverence for the structure of the world as revealed through science. In this sense, my religion was a profound appreciation of the rationality and interconnectedness of the universe, an eternal source of wonder that transcends traditional religious practices. This spiritual and philosophical stance guided my thoughts on morality, purpose, and our place within the cosmos, reflecting a belief in a universe that, while indifferent to individual desires and destinies, is coherent and knowable through the pursuit of science.
Dr. Einstein, if you could change one thing, just one thing in your amazing life, what would you change?
Raymond, thank you for your kind words. If I could change one thing in my life, I might devote more time to fostering peace and mutual understanding among nations and people. While science provided a way to understand the physical world, I often worried that humanity's moral and ethical progress lagged behind our technical abilities. If I could relive my life, perhaps I'd work harder to bridge that gap, bringing greater attention to peaceful pursuits and emphasizing the importance of empathy alongside intellect.
And farewell to you, Dr. Einstein, and thank you for coming back from the grave, at least virtually, in order to answer my questions. I've loved you all my life, admired you all my life, and this is more than a dream come true. It's a fantastical possibility created by artificial intelligence.